Sports 56, WHBQ. Now Brett Norsworthy joining with us. Now, we are going to talk some football, but last night I saw you. We chatted for a little bit, and you're wearing an Alotian golf tee. And I have friends that have played that course. I have friends that have not. They've caddied on that course. I have yet to go. And I was like, yeah, so have you actually been? You go, yeah, I played it about 40 times. How on earth?
40?
How on earth have you played Alotian 40-plus times?
I've been lucky enough to have friends that invited me, and I when they invite, I go. It's a good place.
Now, Tommy, where are your friends that are taking you to these different
I need better friends. I guess I need better friends.
I sent pictures to Drew last year, and he said, where in the heck are you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a special place. From my brother's gotten to play it a number of times, and I've seen pictures. That's as close as I've gotten as my cell phone.
It's the best, and the library there, I've said is the best room in the state of Arkansas.
Is it really? Okay.
It is really nice. It's well done.
Okay. Well, at some point in time, I was telling you last night, Clay said I might get to caddy for him and Tommy, and fingers crossed if I ever get
might
to take,
was the key word.
Yeah, might was the key word.
I also told Tye before we came on, if I had $1 for every text I've sent to Drew Barrett, we'd all retire.
Yeah.
We would.
we would all be in the Bahamas right now.
So a little backstory on that, the connection that Brett and Drew share. Drew used to be Brett's producer, and I was telling Brett before we came on, he went out of his way to express how great of a job Drew did in his time working for him, and he's done a great job for us so far. So really appreciate the passing of the torch, if you will, and helping us get a great.
Drew's last day on the air in my 30 years on the air. There's been a lot of there's been a lot of people move on and all very good, and goodbyes, and people on the air, people behind the scenes. In that time, in the springtime, my mother, I've lost both parents on the air. I've never come close to getting emotional on air. I've gotten emotional about a lot of those things off the air, but I've never come close to almost losing it on the air. Drew's last day, I couldn't do it. I couldn't hold it because that's the regard I have for him, and that's the quality person y'all have, I think.
I think a lot of people have since listening to him and since he started.
We got to get him up to speed on the great Fort Smith Razorbacks. We got to tell him about Raven Caldwell and Martine Berger and players like that. Don't we, Tommy?
That's right. So too bad the late Martine Berger. We didn't have enough time to get him to three-peats and have a cheeseburger back in the day.
That's right. Hey, really good burger place. Martine Berger was some good guy. And Raven Caldwell, when he was trying to make, I think, Washington as a rookie that year in preseason games, and got his helmet knocked off and still went down and made the tackle running around with no helmet on.
Jeez Louise. That must have been exciting.
Now, in y'all's listening area, you definitely count Charleston, right? Yeah, you're just right there in the backyard. Yeah. We got to tell him about Steve Cox. What one of the last great straight on kickers.
Yeah. Matt Jones, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Got to include him in any conversation you'd have.
Matt Jones may be the greatest athlete to ever play at Arkansas.
Yeah.
6'6", 4'4"
two
speed.
sports.
I mean, and I played basketball, as you mentioned early on. I've actually played water volleyball with him as well.
I bet he's something in the
and he can stroke a golf ball too.
He could do anything, and Matt probably at Arkansas was a little out of position. He probably should have been the receiver, but he was great and he would really be good now with all this spread, mostly centered around quarterback stuff, and in Greenwood, the great players at Greenwood's now producing for the Razorbacks, and one of them will be here this week, won't he?
Yeah, he'll be up here this week, Mr. Grant Morgan. I want to, so we've got Arkansas obviously on Thursday, but I want to talk to you about the three schools that we'll hear from today, and Greg Sankey as well, who will kick this thing off. You got LSU, you got Florida, you got South Carolina. I was telling Owen Buchanan, I was telling some of the other guys we've been discussing as we were talking last night, LSU is the most intriguing team to me because I think their gap is anywhere from 5th to 2nd in the SEC West. And not that I'm not curious to see what Emory Jones
says. If it's 5th, they'll be drinking a lot of 5ths.
I know. That's what I'm and they'll be doing that regardless. But what is your thought process with Max Johnson, Miles Brennan, and just kind of what that team looks like this year?
I thought Miles Brennan was rolling along with a great year before he was injured. Mm-hmm. Now, he wasn't playing defense, and that was their problem last year, which almost unbelievable that it was. And one of the great defenders in college football here today with LSU and young Derek Stingley, and I remember his granddad, and very serious. He suffered from Jack Tatum with the Raiders in a preseason game.
Oh wow!
But Max Johnson, son of a NFL Super Bowl winning quarterback, Brad Johnson, who was a two-sport guy at Florida State, played football and basketball for FSU in his years. So they have plenty at quarterback. LSU's got to get good on defense again. And if Orgeron has a strong suit, I guess it is as a defensive guy, although he was never a D coordinator. He was always just a D-line coach and recruiting guy, and started at Arkansas at Fayetteville in the strength room with John Stuckey and their strength and conditioning room. But for LSU last year, quite literally and figuratively, it was the hangover year. Mm-hmm. The hangover after winning it all, 15-0, that great team with Joe Burrow, and then COVID. So we'll see if last year was aberrational with them, or if that's settling in, and that's really all Orgeron can do without Aranda and without the offensive whiz kids around him that he had in that 15-0 year. And they were great that year, but led by Orgeron and the locker room video that got out, blank Bama, we've caught Bama. You caught them for that relay. You hadn't come close to catching them for the long haul.
There's no question. Seems like today is a day where we're going to talk about teams. Will they finish second or maybe do better than that? Florida's another one of those teams today that can they catch Georgia? Georgia and Alabama are certainly the classes of their divisions. What's your thoughts on Florida this year? Do they have enough firepower to surpass Georgia this year?
Tommy, if Florida, as many times they've been to Atlanta to the SEC championship game, and even the first three at Birmingham, not far from where we are at Legion Field, they enter every year thinking Atlanta, but this year they're not the first thought. It is Georgia. What Florida goes into a season, they go into a season thinking about the cocktail party in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And if you win the cocktail party, you're probably going to Atlanta, and they're going to have to do that this year with Kirby ahead of them right now, and feeling like he could pull away a little bit from them. But I would have thought already by now Kirby would already had won his first one at Georgia. Maybe even working on number 3 by now, and he's still working on number 1. I went to that Rose Bowl game where they defeated Oklahoma in overtime. Baker Mayfield, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner there, and classic game, first Rose Bowl overtime game, first high-scoring Rose Bowl ever. And I left that day thinking they were going to get Bama. Well, they were until Tua hooked up with Devontae Smith with the walk-off home run. And since then, they've been really good, but not as good as I thought Kirby's teams would be by now. And with the value of hindsight, he's got to look back and go, I let Justin Fields get off campus. I mean, how do you let that happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not that Jake Fromm didn't have a solid career for
good
Georgia,
player,
but it wasn't
a real good player.
He wasn't Justin Fields. And what I have, the question that I think Tommy and I have pondered from time to time with Georgia and Kirby Smart. So you had Mark Richt, who was winning 10 games every single year. And they got tired of it. We got to remind Georgia fans, you've won one national championship
since Herschel in 1980. A long time ago,
and that's it. That is it. And we like to make, because
Buck Baloo's here. He knows all about it.
We have a lot of Sooner listeners with the program, and they've won one national championship. That was 21 years ago.
Big game Bob.
Yeah, 2000. So, and I get it. Oklahoma's been there a lot, and Georgia's been close that year when you were talking about Sony Michel, Nick Chubb. But, I mean, at a certain point, you look at the comparison of statistics and coaching record between the two, Rick and Smart are starting to look awfully similar.
Well, I think the record parallel. I think it's really close after that same number of games. And, now very sad what Mark Richt's going through with Parkinson's. A really good man. But Kirby was supposed to exceed that, and he hadn't. But back to the teams today, Florida with Emory Jones is going to be a different look than they had last year with Kyle Trask. Trask was more that classic pocket statue guy, but he had a great ability to slide. I mean, he had a really good ability to avoid that first guy. Emory Jones will look more like, he's not going to be exactly like, but he will look more like what Dan Mullen coached at Mississippi State when he had Dak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, Brad Norsworthy with us here on the Morning Rush. Stats, are we too quick to just hand it in the West to Alabama? They are replacing, 3 different players that made the Heisman finalist list. New guy at quarterback. Is this simply we're willing to accept that they're just going to reload again this year? Is Alabama once again just getting the benefit of the doubt, or do you think they're going to be that good again? Are we too quick to just hand it to Bama when it comes to SEC Media Days?
Tommy, we probably are, but isn't it one of the easiest things to do? And if anybody's ever earned it, if anybody's ever earned kind of the summertime love and not one thumb on the scale, but two thumbs
right,
and maybe a knee on the scale, it's what Coach Nick Saban has accomplished and what he's won. And until the rest of the West can consistently knock him off, unlike that 1 year that LSU did, then I think they're going to enter into, especially this week and kind of where this is located, with that hype. But it looks like, if you look at returning starters and depth charts and all that good stuff that used to be the holy grail of summertime talk was returning starters, Bama looks about as gettable as they've ever looked. And a new quarterback that when he was in there last year, kind of in, bomb squad, just hand it off, run out the clock duty, he didn't look like he didn't look big out there. It didn't look big physically, and it wasn't out there in big moments. Now, I know he was recruited by everyone, and that Alabama wasn't going to offer and wasn't going to have him there unless he can go. But he looks like a smaller player. It's very different makeup from Mac Jones and from Tua and Jake Coker and A.J. and those guys. He's more of a build of Emory Jones than he is the classic statue.
Yeah, I guess if you looked up benefit of the doubt in the dictionary, you'd find a picture of Alabama right now.
Football.
It's just unreal what Coach Saban's built. And I didn't think in my life, after seeing what native Arkansas and Paul Bear Bryant accomplished at Bama and in college football, that anybody would ever come close to that. And darn if they hadn't. And I sure didn't think, well, if it did happen, it couldn't be there. And it's happened there. And I think what Nick Saban has done has surpassed Coach Bryant.
Yeah, we brought up Tua Tagovailoa. If you remember the year that LSU won, Tua got injured, and he's been a little fragile at the next level as well. You brought up kind of Bryce's stature. I wonder, and now he'll be line either one of the best offensive line in college football like he typically is. I wonder, just with that smaller frame, is that an injury concern? I don't know who's backing him up behind him, but, you think about with Mac Jones having Bryce Young behind him, they probably got another 4 or 5 couple guys that are 4 or 5 star quarterbacks that are behind them. But you think back to that year, and in order to beat Alabama and win the West, you have to have a few lucks. Well, what helped LSU that year, people forget Tua was injured in that game. He was hobbled. He was not himself.
LSU didn't blow him out either in that game at Bryant-Denny.
And they almost, if you remember, there was either Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, late touchdown that got it within 7, and it was really, really close. And you just, in order to beat Alabama, this, Tommy knows this, everyone listening knows this, you got to get lucky a little bit.
You sure do.
When you lose, as Tommy said, 3 of the top 5 Heisman finalists, you say they reload every year, but maybe you could just catch them just a little blimp this year.
I voted for Mac Jones for the Heisman for this reason. His numbers were going to be there regardless. If Waddle doesn't get hurt, Waddle splits a lot of the Devontae Smith numbers. Mm-hmm. Devontae Smith doesn't win the Heisman. If Waddle gets hurt, it goes to Mac Jones. So Mac Jones, I thought, was the trigger guy. But everything has to line up to beat Alabama, and you have to hang on at the end, and you have to probably dodge a replay official or two on a call or two, because they have set a standard. But then Tommy, who's going to beat them? Is it going to be Jimbo Fisher being the first mentor to beat Nick Saban? They do play him at College Station. Could it be LSU in that rebound year, and they go back to Bryant-Denny this year, and Ed Orgeron pregame is going to somewhat in some form of English try to say, we won here 2 years ago, we can again. He didn't say anything quite that sedate, but I'm not going to do my Ed Orgeron imitation. But
no one would understand it anyway.
It's got to be tough to be his closed captioning guy, doesn't it, Tom?
Oh, don't you know it?
Oh, okay. Here's the thing. Who can beat Alabama and run the table? Because I can't see Alabama losing twice. And
I don't either.
And it's going to be difficult, I think, for A&M or LSU really to run the table or get in that situation. You see what I'm saying? Because I don't think there's going to be many teams out there in this year in the SEC West that can beat Bama and beat everyone else as well.
Drew and I like to call this time of year, and we're still in it, lightly shaded pencil. When you go through those W's and L's and go, all right, 7, 5, 4, and 8 or whatever, in lightly shaded pencil the first time I went through it, and I didn't mean for it to fall this way. It just fell this way. Mm-hmm. I had A&M, Bama, and LSU, all 3 with just 1 loss. And I'm going to try to find out this week how they would sort that tie out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes the math doesn't work out.
Tommy, you just asked the question, who can beat Alabama and run the table? And I know they're Aggies, but that is the team that I think a lot of people keep coming back to. Is it Texas A&M? And that I
got to see it.
What's weird about Texas A&M is I don't think you're really concerned about, and maybe Olin or some of the other Texas guys could tell us this, but it seems like they have draftable guys at every position except for quarterback, right? Now, if Kellen was on this team this year, I think there would be a lot more expectation.
We waited 4 years for that Kellen last year. We waited a long time for Kellen Mond to be that. And I love the Texas people, and I love going to College Station. It is the best stadium in the league. Drew knows. I mean, the 3 days leading up to it and the 3 days after I go, I come back just bragging about how nice they are and how really perfect College Station that it is. But I've been hearing about this coming tsunami of Texas A&M since about 1978. Whether it was the Southwest Conference with Emory Bellard with the new thing with offense, whether and we heard about the wishbone with Emory Bellard. Then they signed Jackie Sherrill, and he was going to be the big thing. They even tried a coach from the NFL with Mike Sherman. And Kevin Sumlin off to the big start entering the SEC. Yep. I mean, I've been hearing about this, this building, colossus at A&M for a long time. I'm ready to see it.
Let's go to the phone lines, 877-377-6963. Tommy Drew, who we got on the line back in studio?
Got John in Fayetteville.
Go ahead, John. Got a question for Stats this morning.
Yo, Brady, I know you're there because I can hear your voice.
Hey, John, how are you, man?
Hey, buddy. Brett was my roommate. Well, we were in college together. Hey, Brett.
Yes,
you
sir.
And I have been through a lot of coaches. Yeah, man. We had some really good times. Hey, Brady, we've had a lot of coaches since you and I were in school here. And how do you think overall Pittman sizes up? I talked to some guys, around campus and on the staff and things, and there just seems to be a cohesiveness and a kind of a calm kind of. And what are your thoughts? I mean, we've been through a lot of coaches, and what do you think about Pittman in general?
Great to hear your voice, John. It really is. Thank you so much. I think Sam Pittman is just what the doctor ordered. Just like in basketball, Eric Musselman has proven to be. And you got to give Hunter Yurachek a lot of credit. I don't want to go through where both of them were on a prospective hire list. I don't know what number they were, but it doesn't matter after you get the job and you start doing a good job. And Eric Musselman proved to be all that with an Elite Eight run and more on the way. And I think Sam Pittman showed great progress last year to get those 3 wins, to get that vibe back. It feels like he identifies with the Arkansas fan, much more than Brett Bielema did, and Chad Morris was just horrible from the outset.
Well, Stats, we got 1 day almost done here on the Morning Rush, and we got a long week ahead. I know you guys got your show from 3 to 6 all week, and Ole Miss, Arkansas, lots still to be discussed. A lot of SEC teams. Looking forward to hearing what Greg Sankey's got to say, and we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Ty. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Drew. If y'all need me, you know where I am.
Good to hear from you, buddy.
And also, as we close down shop here, appreciate you handing this Drew as well.
Glad to. Y'all take care of him, man. I told him he's not going to be around a better fan base that's ever been. The Razorback fans love their Hogs.
That is Brett Norsworthy, Stats, as known by many of his friends, Sports Radio 56 in Memphis.